In today's video, we paint a Dark Angels Terminator. Did I get that right? Dark Angels Deathwing Terminator? Anyway, we will use my Aventus airbrush, our beloved blender sponge, some awesome Foxbite Hobbies Kolinsky brushes, and the precision chipping sponge. As a member of the Army Painter Factory team, we are painting with the Army Painter paints as usual. Similar to our last video, some of the paints and washes used in the latter part of this video are new ones that I cannot show yet, but I will reveal them in the next video. I initially wanted a grim dark finish, but alas, I ended up with my usual grim pop. So, join me as we paint this Warhammer Mini with mostly paints from the John Blanche Masterclass sets by the Army Painter. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my channel. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to the Army Painter for making this video possible. By the way, don't forget my discount codes and affiliate links down below. It won't cost you extra and it will help the channel. Also, you'll get some big discounts. We start our painting with Sunburst Ochre from the John Blanche Masterclass Set. We are using my Aventus airbrush with a 0.4 needle. I thinned down the paint around 4 parts thinner and 1 part paint. I am running my airbrush at 25-ish psi. Once happy with your Sunburst Ochre painting, we airbrush Desert Yellow mostly from the top. The Sunburst Ochre is our shade color. After a couple of thin coats of Desert Yellow, we now have a nice base color for the armor. Airbrush painting will always give you smooth transitions, but I always want texture in my painting. I find textures more interesting than very smooth transitions. Now we paint a layer brighter color with a blender sponge. I have a ton of old videos on how to paint with this sponge. Thin down your paints, roughly 3 parts paint and 1 part thinner medium or water. Sponge in multiple thin coats, allowing previous layers to dry. I applied 3 thin coats, painting the 3rd coat on the top areas. Let the paint dry before proceeding to the next step. If you are finding value in this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now we filter with pallid bone. You may apply this with an airbrush for a more uniform and even finish. Filtering with an airbrush will dry faster, but we want the imperfections that you get with applying with a brush. Also, applying with the brush will give you the typical subtle contrast that you get from speed paints. Using the brush pen or water pen that you see in the video helps you achieve a nicer speed paint finish. The pallid bone smoothened down our previous layers. Now we have a nice base color for the armor. If I weren't filming my painting process, our painting so far should be less than 30 minutes of work. Personally, I think the manner of painting the base colors doesn't really matter, especially if you plan to paint a lot of layers or do a lot of layering and painting some highlights. Because at the end of the day, it's a matter of just building up the color so that you produce very nice painting. I am happy with our painting so far, but I want more textures. So now we paint with the precision chipping sponge brush from the Army Painter. You may use the usual dishwashing sponge for a similar effect. I like this chipping sponge a lot. It seems to have more space in between the chipping, and I find this easy to clean. The only thing that I do not like about this sponge is the way it was glued to the handle. I am afraid that it might not be that durable. Nitpicking aside, this sponge produces a nice chipping effect. Once happy with the sponge chipping, we paint a few chipping and some edge highlights using a detailed Kolinsky brush by Foxbite Hobbies with the same color. Similar to the next step, this part of the painting process can be as time-consuming as you want it to be. Before we paint the rest of the model, we paint some more chipping with Banshee Brown. These dark brown chipping represent rust or deep dents on the armor. You may use the same chipping sponge for the Banshee brown chipping, but load the sponge less and apply with very light pressure. This is tricky since you can potentially apply too much. I applied a quick coat of matte varnish on the Mini and let it cure overnight. Now we do basic layering and we paint towards the highlights. It's our second day of painting this Mini. I have let the paint and the varnish cure overnight. Now we paint the rest of the Mini via basic layering. We start with darker colors and we layer up towards the highlights. Most of the Army Painter paints I am using from here onwards are new paints, and I cannot show the exact paint in this video. I will reveal these new paints in the next video though. However, so that you can follow along with the painting, I placed graphics of substitute colors. As mentioned earlier, we are painting via basic layering. We are painting darker base colors, then simply layer up brighter colors towards the highlights. The two keys to basic layering are, first, to identify the areas hit by your imaginary main source of light. Second, you paint smaller areas as the colors get brighter. By following these two key guidelines, you will create more volume and depth to your painting. If you overdo the painting of the bright pre-highlight colors, you may tone down everything with washes. As for me, I am happy with our painting so far. So now we proceed to painting with the brighter highlights. Highlighting can be optional, especially if you're just going for a tabletop quality painting. The amount of time in the painting of the highlights will help you produce a better miniature. I always say this in my older videos. Highlighting is the highlight of your miniature painting. Pun intended. At this point in the painting process, I am just pushing the contrast of the painting with more highlights. This is the main problem when painting with less saturated colors. You always feel, at least for me, that your painting looks bland and boring. This is the main reason why I struggle with grimdark and always end up with grim pop painting. Don't get me wrong, I love well-done grimdark with beautiful volume, desaturated tonal values, and nice highlights. But I am not a fan of grimdark that is too dark and looks muddy. Anyway, once happy with your highlights, we proceed to add more shades and tones with washes. Typically, I would apply glazes at this point to refine my painting and add more color depth. But I want to finish the painting already, and washes are practically glaze paints anyway. Glazing or filtering is the application of translucent paints to produce more contrast and depth to your painting. The main difference between using washes versus thinned down regular acrylics for glazing is that washes were formulated to add contrast to your painting and they will darken your finish. However, using washes, especially speed paint as washes, will give you quicker results. Notice how I apply washes in the video. Since I do not want my painting to become too dark, I only apply washes on the edges of the highlights and on areas that I perceive should have shadows. Selective or precision application of the washes will give you more tonal values and volume to your painting. It is the third day of painting, but it is also grocery day. Anyway, after a quick grocery run, I applied some quick final highlights. I like applying final highlights after a day of curing. Paints, may it be acrylics or oil paints, darken as they cure. So you want to let the paints cure before deciding if you need more highlights. It is very important to note that the Army Painter Warpaints Fanatics darkens way less than most paints from other brands that I have used before. Similar to most of the paints I use on day 2, I cannot show the actual paints that I am using right now. but I have replaced them with graphics of colors that you could substitute to follow along with the painting. To finish the painting, I applied a couple of thin coats of matte varnish using my 0.4 Aventus airbrush. Shameless plug ahead, guys! I am inviting you to check our new painting tutorial campaign at Kickstarter. You'll get 24 STL 3D printable face painting plates to follow along with our painting tutorials. There are male and female skin tones, and the STL comes in big and smaller 75mm scale. More details at Kickstarter and at suratosstudios.com. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon. I am very happy that my first 2 videos of 2026 are full painting process videos. I tend to show just the armor or skin painting of the minis that I paint here on my channel. You may want to check my Patreon or our website, suratosstudios.com, for more comprehensive painting guides. You saw that we painted this Warhammer mini in 3 days. I spent around 4 hours on the first day, another 4 to 5 hours on the second day, and a couple of hours of highlighting on the third day. You also saw that we used different tools and brushes to achieve different effects and levels of efficiency. With proper paint thinning and dilution to air pressure ratio, you will always paint base colors the fastest with quick shading with an airbrush. Painting with sponges, on the other hand, is the quickest way to produce nice textures. The blender sponge produces a nice stippled effect. A dishwashing sponge or the precision chipping sponge we used here will give you a more random, well-spaced, and slightly bigger chipping. The dry brush will also give you textures. A scratchy texture that is great for the basing. Needless to say, I prefer the texture produced by sponges in most cases. I have been using Foxbite Hobbies brushes for more than a year now. Thus, you notice I endorse them loudly than before. They are durable, very high-quality synthetic and Kolinsky sable brushes that won't break your bank. The main advantage of using good quality sable brushes is the precision and control they give you when painting tiny details and highlights. You still want your synthetic brushes like the brush pen for painting with washes and most especially with speed paints. Since you do not need too much precision when applying washes, and you want to save your precious Kolinsky brushes for detail and highlight painting, you will want to use synthetic brushes for these types of paints and paint application. I hope it is obvious that we are going for a slightly higher quality painting for 2026. We did a gazillion of slap chop variations in the past year, and it was mighty fun. I still plan to paint with speed paints in future videos, since I love speed paints too much. But our main focus this year is efficient and higher quality painting. I have a commissioned Lionel Johnson, a handful of commissioned Imperial Knights, Infinity Minis, and some Trench Crusade Minis lined up. But do tell me in the comment section below what minis or factions that you want to see me paint here at my channel. I also want to paint my very first Warhammer army, Kill Team, or my very first warband at the very least. I'm curious to hear from you guys. What should be my first army or warband that you want to see in this channel? That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye! If you like this video, you might want to check out these other videos.